Comparison is everywhere. It's in conversations. It's in conferences. It's on social media, places like LinkedIn. It's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere, and it can either push us to grow, or often what happens, it pulls us towards a position where we start doubting ourselves. And I don't know. I'm so far behind. I'm not cut out for this. There's all those kinds of doubts that then start creeping in. And today, what I really want to do is unpack the role of comparison, specifically in the financial advice profession, and how we can turn it from a silent saboteur, like out of the movies, into a powerful motivator. So looking forward to a fantastic episode today. Welcome to Propulsion, the weekly show for financial planners and advisors who want to build better, more successful businesses. I'm your host, Francois du Toit, and every week we dive into the practical strategies that matter, from growing your client base and improving your services to developing yourself and your team. Whether you're running your own practice or you're part of a larger firm, you are guaranteed to find actionable insights to help your business thrive. So with that, welcome, and let's get into today's episode. So just think about this, and I think this often happens, right? As we scroll specifically through LinkedIn and social media and those kinds of things, you see somebody that do what you do and you go like, oh, well, I haven't even thought about that. And then you see another person posting something else, and you start feeling a little bit out of your depth, and you feel like, geez, man, like I'm just doing what I'm doing. And that's not like you went onto LinkedIn to go and see what others are doing. I mean, that was not even the purpose. You want to see what's news, what's new. But then you start noticing things and you start thinking, these people are winning awards. They are starting podcasts. They've just launched their new Profile Me. They've done all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And I haven't done any of these things. Sure, I'm falling behind. And then that kind of, starts putting stress on you, and it starts making things a little bit more challenging because it's now starting to take up, mind space and mind energy, I think. Now, there was a recent study as well, which is quite important to sort of note, and I think this is something that is really important, but also okay. The American Psychological Association, there is a web where they found that 60% of professionals, 60%, 60 of professionals say social comparison affects their self-esteem and their decision making. Okay, which is, I guess, the point of social media, right? So think about Instagram and TikTok and all those places. But even more of them, so more than that, is saying that, sure, this feels my imposter syndrome. It feels like I'm not really good enough at what I do. I don't really, I don't know whether people should even listen to me sometimes. And I'm taking it to the whole extreme, right? I'm not saying that that's exactly the case, but there are things like that that's making us doubt ourselves in our own abilities. We don't know whether we're doing the right things. I think and I always thought like this was only in the independent space, but I find that that's not the case. I don't know. I mean, if you're here and you're not an independent financial advisor, and you work for a specific FSP, or where you're not independent, you sort of tied. I get this comment all the time that people say, I'm on my own. I'm left to my own devices. Yes, there's infrastructure. Yes, there's all these things there, but I'm pretty much on my own. I'm lonely is actually the word that they use. So they might maybe not be on their own, but they are definitely lonely, and they don't have anybody that they can really talk to and say, well, what are you doing? What am I doing? So now what happens is you see these things on social media and you feel like, whoa, I'm falling behind. I'm not with it. I'm not good enough. People are way far ahead of me. And that kind of stuff is really not a good place to be. And I think this really matters, specifically in the financial advisory industry or the financial planning profession or whatever, is that it's deeply relational and reputational, right? That's what we do. Everything for us is about relationships. Everything for us is about our reputation. If you don't have both of those, it's very, very hard to make it in this. And now I think, when it comes to our reputations, this plays directly into that, not from the client's perspective though, but from our own, and which is sort of something else to think about. Some of the things that we really deeply, deeply care about is things like trust and credibility and authority, but even more so our clients. I mean, we just heard again, it still blows my mind to see how many Ponzi schemes still make it that far and that people still fall for these things. I just don't get that. But clients more and more are looking for trust, for credibility, and for authority. That's really important. They're going to do their homework more and more if they even decide to work with us, right? So that's what we're up against, and we often feel the pressure to just show up and to keep up, and it's just natural, I think. Anyway, so the main question, I guess, is: are we making decisions based on our clients and goals, or do we base our decisions on what we think others are doing, or what others will be doing, or how they see things? So are we really focused on where we are headed and what our clients need from us, or are we allowing for us to be led by others and what others are doing? And the most amazing thing is that we always talk about the fact that financial planning is very personal. It's very unique to each individual and each family. It differs, even though it's all in the same sort of arena. It's different for everybody. But yet sometimes we get bogged down with, what is this one doing? What's that doing? Should I do lifestyle financial planning? Should I sell policies? Should I just go into employee benefits, for example? Should I be charging fees? Should I not be charging fees? And we see all these things going on around us, and it is really overwhelming. But at the end of the day, like any business, it's about, what do clients want and what do they need? Now, the challenge with that, again, is that they often don't also know. I think there's quite a few people who famously said that, unless you show, a client only knows what they want when you show it to them. And that is true to a large degree as well. But there are certain things that they won't compromise on, and that's really important to them, and that they know at the very least. And even if they don't know that, we can help them on that path. So we should be focused, when we build a business, is to focus on what they do. I experienced this firsthand when, you work with, or we work with many different people from all over the world, that do what we do, etc. And you see often in South Africa, I did some research, sort of the end of last year, beginning of this year, around all of, call it the competition, if you will, to see who is our competition. And you always have direct competition and indirect competition. And it's really amazing to understand how much indirect competition you have. My very own clients are my competition in many cases, which is really mind-blowing. So am I going to go sit there and say, you know what, because X company is offering what we're doing, I'm not going to work with them, and we're just going to stay away, or no, we got to go do what they do? It's a difficult place to find yourself, and you've got to really sit back and think through these things and understand that you do what you do. Even if me and you do exactly, even if somebody else goes and starts an exact replica of Propulsion today, it will be very different from what we do, because only we can do it the way we do it, and they will do it the way that they do it. And for me to try and compete with that is absolutely ludicrous, I think. So when I started focusing on just the things that we want to do, why are we doing this? My why was my biggest reason, right? So we will always be about education. We'll always be about growth. We will always be about helping. We have no ulterior motives to get something that I can go sell somewhere else. We've got none of those kinds of things. So we focus primarily on our members, and then also on our clients, and we want them to succeed. It's not about us, it's about them. And you won't believe that how much that takes off the pressure, because now it's like, okay, but now I'm worried. My worries have now changed about what is the other people doing to ship it. What do my members need next? That's my only worry. That's my only concern. Ben and I talk about this all the time. The rest of the team, when we have meetings, we talk about, okay, so what should we do next? How do we level up certain things? What do we do for people who have reached a certain level? What's next for them? And when we have conversations with them, it's really hard to figure out what that next thing is. But that's the focus, and that's a much more fun place to be. And I think you should do exactly the same thing. You know, if you even struggle with something like comparison issues and that. But I do also want to say that comparison is also necessary in a sense, because, and that's where the whole double-edged sword thing came from when we advertised today's episode, is it can be a negative thing. It can cut deep and it can cut hard and it could probably kill you if you let it. But also on the other side is that we do need kind of benchmarks. You know, if the entire profession is moving in a certain direction and I'm not moving, I'm just sitting here, the profession's going to run away from me. Or I'm going in this direction and everybody else is going in that direction. Maybe I must take notice about what's happening and what is the story, because you also can't turn a blind eye to what's going. But I think what we decide to focus on is really, really important, and not only something that, look at every single thing. You got to understand, like, what are those indicators? Those, when you're traveling and you see these road signs, which road signs do you really need to pay attention to? You don't take every single turnoff that comes your way, right? You are on your way to a very specific destination, but you should know which things do I need to look out for. So I'm not looking for the turnoff points. I am looking, though, for, there's potholes in the road, for something that's going to warn me about risks that's up ahead. Those are the things I want to pay attention to. But I don't want to get like, let's go to Three Sisters. I don't know even what, there's an English name for it. I don't want to go to this place. I don't want to go, I'm headed that way. If you're in a place where you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to take some of those turnoffs. So that's again where it comes in. But we also can't not compare. So the bottom line is that we do need certain benchmarks. We want to compare ourselves to those benchmarks. We want to know, what does a good business look like? What does professionalism look like? What does a great client experience look like? I want to know what it looks like when I'm efficient. I want to know what it looks like when we use technology well. I want to know what is the process to select my best technology? How do I get people to adopt it in my team? How do I take my client on those things? I want to know, what does good look like? And there we need comparison. But just because somebody is rolling out a client portal doesn't mean you need to do that, because are your clients going to use it? Do they really need it? Tech providers in many cases will tell you that, oh, yes, absolutely. I can also tell you that unless clients say they want it, and even if they say they want it, you need to ask them, okay, so if you get it, what do you want to be able to do with it? And how often will you use it? Is it something you want to use all the time? Is it something you're going to go to once a year? So we need to stand still and ask those questions, and take it to the next level. Right. So that was a massive introduction. That was only the introductory part. So let me get into the meat of the stuff. I think it's normal for us, obviously, to compare. Without comparison, I don't think we would really evolve and change as well. But again, it is the things that you focus on for that comparison that makes the difference, as I just explained. Comparison does help us, right? So if you, for example, go to a conference and there's lots of people there, you're going to gravitate towards certain people because you are comparing different groups as you see them. And you're going to go like, okay, these are the people. Or I'm going to see certain people have certain conversations on LinkedIn, and I'm more drawn to that kind of conversation than to other conversations. So when I get to an opportunity where I can actually meet people, I would probably go and stand with those people because of that. So you do compare things to your own beliefs. You compare them to, what is important to you, your values and all those kinds of things. And then you make decisions, right? So that comparison is good because you want to protect that. So really important. But I think, some of the things that is causing us to also compare things that we don't really want to is just simply because of everything that we are exposed to at the moment. And the amount of information we are getting on a daily basis is absolutely insane. So much so that you don't even get time to go and unsubscribe from stuff, right? So you keep on seeing this is happening, that's happening, the next thing is happening. So that's really important. But I think if I think about this from a South African perspective, probably a little bit more, because this is a global issue, right? But from a South African context, really, I'm thinking a lot now as I'm about to say this. So we operate in a highly competitive and a highly regulated environment. It's not like financial planning and financial services are not regulated around the world, but it feels like, yes, it's hectic here. And there's certain things that we need to know. I mean, one of the biggest conversation points a lot of the time is around how does it look when I not implement Kofi, but how am I going to demonstrate this practically? What do I need to have in place to make sure that I comply with Kofi? That takes up a lot of brain space, which means if you're thinking about that and you have to think about that, you're losing out thinking about other cool things that you could and should be doing. So that makes it really, really hard from that perspective. I mean, all of these FICA audits, right, or the FIC audits where people got fines, etc. It was a big talking point, and people got afraid. What if they come to me? I've been doing these things like this. My compliance officer has been happy, but my friend down the road just got fined, and that one got fined. I read about this on there because, like, again, all the information. And these things start stealing our time and our energy, and they have to, because those are those risky, it's warning us about things that's up ahead. But that's what we deal with at the moment in South Africa, and specifically, obviously, because of grey listing and all that stuff, it's even worse. So it really can cause us to lose focus, and we sometimes forget about our local relevance. So we look at things that people overseas are doing, and I see this a lot, like, oh, we listen to the overseas podcast and we read the overseas books and we do all those things, and it's necessary. But we sometimes then forget about, like, it's a little bit different here. It's not exactly like, nothing works exactly the same in South Africa. And I'm all for learning from others, and I try and learn from a lot of things outside of the industry and out of the profession, and I then try and apply it to our business and to your business, etc. So we have to bring things in from the outside, but we shouldn't exclusively focus on those things that doesn't have a local context from that point. I mean, I had a very interesting discussion yesterday afternoon around something where a simple thing like pricing, for example, it's very different for an American than it is for a South African, like very, very different. And things that are cheap in their thing is still like mind-blowingly expensive for us. And that's the kind of thing that we sometimes lose when they do things and they can build a business by implementing certain strategies that they talk about. It will work because they have a different market, they have a different like monetary values. When the money just has a different value there. So those are the kinds of things that we shouldn't lose sight of. I think that's really important. Now, when will you see that comparison is actually hurting you, right? I think for me, the very first thing is that I think about it too much. For me, that was the case at some point where I was just constantly thinking about this one thing that was going on, and I had no control over it. They actually did something very different to what we did. It was something that could not be done in a similar fashion than what we do. And in the end, it's sort of, by the time I got to the point where I decided I'm not going to do that, like, I got back to what we were doing, and we are doing very cool things. And I think they then sort of looked at us and go like, oh shit, these people are doing some other cool stuff. But anyway, so that's one thing. But some other real telltale signs are things like you're always tweaking your business model. You're always tweaking your business system. You're always tinkering with something. It's not quite there yet. The recipe isn't there. The kitchen isn't cooking well. Things are not happening the way that it does. So you never finish, and you never believe in what you've built, and you don't consistently implement. You always still have to do this. That's not working so lekker. That's not, instead of just focusing on the thing that we should be doing. So I think that is a telltale sign. Like I did, I felt paralyzed at some stage, because people are just putting out this content, like beautiful reels and beautiful little videos and really well edited videos. And I never get time. Like, I, in the moment, usually do those things, so you sort of start to, why do it even at all? Doubting your own brand, your pricing, all those things that I just spoke about as well. Or thinking like, maybe I'm not dealing with the right clients at the moment. In this market, I'm never going to get there. And then secondly, what we do often is to say, well, but if I don't help these people, who's going to help them? Which is a fair statement. But it's sometimes because we don't know how to change the thing. The thing about business is that it is business. If your business isn't doing well, you can't help no one. So that's a really important one. And even though, you might be having a good business, you've built up recurring revenue, You've got good retention rates, all those things. You still feel, oh, my brand isn't there, my pricing isn't there, those kinds of things. So there's some contradictions there. Also, we sort of try to say, well, we're doing well because I've got so many followers and we get so much engagement on our post and so many people watches our videos. I constantly remind myself, I think people think we get thousands and thousands and thousands of views on an episode like this. We don't. We sometimes get as little as 120 views. We sometimes get as much as 400 views. Some of the videos has got over 1,000 views, but only a couple of them. But I mean, if 100 people watches one of these episodes or listens to the podcast and things like that, I mean, have you stood in front of an audience of 100 people in a room? It's really humbling. It's a lot of people. So I stopped looking at the metrics a very, very long time ago. The only thing we're trying to do is grow our reach. So therefore, we want more people to subscribe to the channel or to join the WhatsApp channel or things like that. But that's all that it's about, right? So we don't really get into the vanity metrics as they call these days. But also we are, I think that said, is that often we confuse impact with visibility or visibility with impact. We think because 10,000 people see you that you have an impact. It's not necessarily so. Or we think that because you have 10,000 people seeing your stuff that you have a bigger impact than what I have with 500 views, for example. And that's not necessarily the case. Again, we should focus on what we are doing and not what other people are doing. So very important. Also, there can be some emotional indicators as well, which I really experienced. If you keep on focusing on what others are doing and where you're not, and don't worry, I'm going to get to the good stuff in a second. So there's not only negative, but burnout and anxiety. I deal with a lot of anxiety all the time. I joked with Ben. I said, since he's been here, my average heart rate has dropped by about 20 beats per minute. Like seriously, I mean, I check the stuff on my watch every single day. My resting heart rate has come down by 20 beats per minute on average, right? So a lot of this stuff is real. Like, and you will know this if this applies to you. Anyway, so also we don't want to collaborate with people we feel are they too far ahead of us, that kind of stuff. So we feel like we don't want to collaborate with anyone. And then also we sometimes feel a bit ashamed, of where we are currently. I've been going for 10 years now. No, I'm only here. I should have been. Yeah, I mean, yesterday I had a long discussion with somebody, and telling my whole story to him as well is like, yes, man. If I just did this stuff earlier, I would have been so much further along. But then this wouldn't be my story, And some people get it right quickly, and some people tend to take a long time. I was one of those who's taking a long time, and I'm happy with that. Took me a while to be happy with that. So, by the way, so. What does it look like, at the end of the day? I think we need to ask ourselves, if you want to know the comparison that you may be doing in the moment, whether it's a good or bad comparison, or let's say a good comparison for you, or maybe not such a good comparison for you, is to ask yourself, do I feel better after I compared myself? Or am I feeling worse when I see what others are doing? Does it have a positive or a negative impact on me? That's really important. So on that note, let's look at what does it look like when we have healthy benchmarking or we have toxic comparison. So when you are benchmarking, that's one thing. That's usually positive. But if you are comparing, it's usually not so good. So let's look at that. I think when you do healthy, let's start with the positive stuff. So healthy comparison is more around, you're curious, and you will see we started signing off all our articles, everything with stay curious. Even the show I'm ending with stay curious. Curiosity is really where things are at. So now you have a learning mindset. You are open to see, like, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? You don't feel like, oh crap, I'm so far behind. You go like, here's opportunities here. I wonder how I can make that work for me. So that's really important. So there's curiosity, and you're not being competitive in that situation. Also, you got to understand, why is that working for them? So have context. So figure out, why is that particular thing working for them but not for you, maybe, if that's the case. Also, you've got to think about structure. So, what happens during regular reviews or planning sessions? What happens in that instance? Like, and even as you see different clients, compare those different sessions. Why are you doing one thing with one client and a completely different thing with somebody else? Why is that the case? So that could be something where you say, well, I'm actually reviewing my own process. That's what I'm doing. So I have a structured approach to the whole comparison thing. And also, you've got to personalize it as well. So you've got to be curious. You've got to have context, structure, and you must personalize it. So if you think about, the things that you are doing, how is that aligned to your clients, your services, your goals, your capacity? That's what's important. You can't compete with somebody who's got a team of 5 people helping and supporting them, and here you are going at it completely alone. So really important. So that's what healthy looks like. If we look at the toxic part of this, it's that feeling of like, well, one imposter syndrome, but I'm falling behind. I can't keep up. There's just too much going on. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. You're lacking data. There's no intention. You're just looking for the sake of looking. There's no reason. You're not being curious. You're not trying to learn. You just sort of by default comparing yourself. Then also maybe the things that you're seeing and the meaning that you assign to it and what you're seeing is based on, just service level assumptions. So you might be thinking that, but it's because they were lucky. They started before all the regulations, so they had time to build up a business before all of this stuff came. I mean, that's an assumption to make, but there's no substance to that, even though part of that might be true in that instance. And then also maybe you're just one of those people, the fear of missing out. That's something that I struggle with quite a bit as well. It's like, oh, this and that, and you try to be everywhere and learn everything, and you're still busy with this thing. Then somebody else launches something else, and then we jump on. We jump onto that, and why? So again, it goes back. It becomes the cycle of just feeding ourselves all the wrong stuff. There's 3 questions that you need to ask yourself if you want to filter these things, right? So I want to share these 3 questions with you. When you see someone else's success. 1, you got to write this down. What can I learn from this? So that's the first question. The second question is, does this align with my values, my clients, and my direction? Yes or no? And then lastly, if I implement this, what will I stop doing? Because I think as we build our businesses, or not think, I do know, like as you build your business, you add things and add things and add things, but you can only add so much. At some point, you've got to say, okay, now if we add one more thing, we've got to remove something. You can only buy so many plates and so many cutlery. At some point, you've got to decide, I've got to throw out the old things and bring in the new things. So what am I doing? Am I keeping the old things or am I bringing in new things? But I can't have both. So that's important. So let me run through those 3 questions just briefly again. So when you see someone else's success, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Does this align with my values, my clients, and my direction? And if I implement this, what will I stop doing? That's it, right? And it'll make it a lot easier for you. So 5 practical ways to refocus. So let me give you some strategies and practical things you can do. It's sort of, I think the first thing is know your own, call it my scorecard. You can track things like your client retention, your client satisfaction, your revenue per client, your average turnaround times. Those kinds of things are really useful. But have your own metrics. We spoke about this, I think, the other day, or this is in one of the training programs we're doing, that you've got to know those numbers. What is it that's important to you? And one of the big numbers I want people to add into the list is to say, well, how many of my clients' outcomes have we achieved? Nobody's tracking that. We track revenue and we track all sorts of wonderful things, but we don't look at how do we help people achieve what they set out to achieve when they started working with us. Because that's going to be the most powerful metric that you possibly could have, and because that's your real impact from that point. Right. So know your own scorecard. Second one, curate your inputs. So understand what is coming into your world. Filter what is coming into your world. If you get all sorts of information from many different sources, you never look at it, or it's not good for you, unsubscribe, delete, remove, like any of those kinds of things. Unfollow those accounts on LinkedIn. I remember a couple of years ago, more than like it was here 2016, 17, round about there. There were two particular individuals who's very vocal on LinkedIn, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I thought to myself, why am I even connected to these people? Why am I even listening to this or reading this? So I just unfollowed, and my life was back to normal. It's a very simple thing to do. So follow those who teach, right? So look at who's teaching and not just those who perform. Who's really helping you and who has the intention of helping, and not only you, but I think the profession in general as well. And then replace, look what they're doing with what's working for me. So that's the other one, right? So know your own scorecard, curate your inputs. Third one, return to your why. I happened to mention this earlier, where I said, why are we doing this? Like, what is Propulsion about? Why are we building the community? What is it that we want to achieve long term? And do I believe in the way that we're going about doing that? And the answer was yes. And then I knew, like, competitors are not competitors because they've got a very different agenda from that point of view. So it's the same thing for you. Understand your why. So go back to your mission statement if you've got one. If not, create one. Think about, what does your ideal client personas look like? Understand who you work with, why you want to work with them. What is it that you do for them? What are the problems you really try or that you help them solve? And it's not retirement planning. It's not estate planning, just by the way. That's the tool. What are the problems that you're solving? Then ask yourself, what do my clients actually want from me? Right? That's all you need to care about. Then the fourth one, create before you consume. Now, I saw... now I'm thinking, now that I'm thinking about this, I saw a post somewhere where somebody was also talking about, it was Daniel Priestley, are you creating or consuming? If you are intentional and instead of consuming, and instead of, like, something I did, for example, was I don't have any news apps. I don't listen to any news. I don't read the news. I frankly don't care about the news, right? And be that right or wrong as a business person, or stupid or clever, I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. Some people really love that. And I think for some people, it's really, really important. I was listening to somebody in the week talking about, everything that's happening with Trump and all of that. It's really insightful, but I can't do anything about it. If I need to sit here and worry about the 145% tariffs that might have an effect on us or whatever it is, I'm going to go sit here and like, oh, as a small business, I'm screwed. Or am I getting on with my mission and looking at that? It's very different for you, though, because your clients might be rattled. Your clients might be wanting. You have to have these conversations with them. So it might be very different for you. But still, I decided to filter out those things and not make them part of my life. You need to do the same with the things that are not adding to your life. So think about, if you can intentionally every single day start, rather write content or create a plan, or work on your client experience, work on the way that you deliver your services. Don't just sit there and consume. And I think if you want to consume, you rather review things afterwards and see how it's going. That's the kind of consumption that we maybe should be doing, apart from learning and that kind of stuff. And then the last one, number 5, is celebrate others and ground yourself. Say well done when you see those same people that gave you anxiety for whatever reason. Tell them well done. That's fantastic, and be genuine in that regard. Don't fake it, because people do know. But also, what are you proud of that happened this week? In the community, we used to do these Friday wins kind of things. But if I don't ask about Friday wins, people don't share Friday wins. So maybe we shall start that again. But what is there that you are proud of this week? I mean, there's a long list of things that have gone wrong, probably. But what are the things that you are really proud of? What are the things that you are grateful for? And those are really important things to say. And I think very importantly, and this is also something I see all the time, people think the pie is only this big. There's enough for everybody to go around. There's enough success for everybody. We don't have to sit here and criticize how other people are being successful. We should focus on what success means for us, and don't underplay yourself in that sense as well. Don't be afraid to set big goals for yourself and to say, I want to build a big business. I want to build a proper business. I'm not saying like a massive FSP, but I mean, there is no limit, right? If you really think about it. But have an abundance mindset. So, and that means that not only for yourself, but it means that other success doesn't take away from your success. It actually adds to your success, and the same from you to them. So that's really, really important. So I want to end off by saying comparison is natural. It can be helpful. I think we compare things just with our nature. You've got to make a decision. Is it am I safe or am I not safe? So that's sort of that. Call it judgment even if you want to. But if you don't manage the comparison, then you might feel confused. You might feel burned out. You might feel misaligned and just overwhelmed in general. But also then if you really manage it well, then you focus on your own strengths, you focus on clients, you stay in your lane, do what needs to be done, and focus on what moves you forward, and everything will be good. Okay, ladies and gents, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining us. We will be back next week, I believe. Friday is unless Friday is a public holiday, but I think we're back next week. I'm pretty sure we're back next week. So until then, stay safe, be blessed, and prosper. And, of course, stay curious and continue to raise the bar. Thank you very much for joining us and for spending your time with us. Love you lots. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us on Propulsion. If you found value in today's episode, then there's plenty more where this came from. You can find all our previous episodes right here on the podcast as well as on our YouTube channel. And talking about the YouTube channel, we go live every single Friday at 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. and we host many different guests, and we also talk about very interesting topics. And on the live show, there's also some incredible segments hosted by some of the most well-known and influential financial planning professionals. So you are most welcome to join us every single Friday. Put it in your diary and we will see you there. And on that note, also please do check out propulsion.co.za/community for all of the goodness and learn more about how you can become part of our amazing community and how that could benefit you, your business, and your career. So on that note, stay curious and keep raising the bar.